start time starting now. Love is short, forgetting is long, by Pablo Neruda, a Chilean poet. When hearing this quote, I believe it means we never forget the pain that haunts us. Rather, it becomes what dictates our actions and governs us even later, no matter how long it's been. To go into explaining why I believe it means this, I'll first state that you remember the pain longer than you remember any happiness. For my first example, I will talk about Yemen. In today's world, we know Yemen as a country that is met with serious humanitarian crises, serious laws against serious human rights violations happening in that country. We know it as a country marked by strife. We know it as a country that has many different terrorist organizations. But 12 years ago, before this country was met with so much problems, so much terrorism, so much strife, it was known as Happy Yemen. It was a place where people would go to hike their mountains. It was a place where a lot of the people were happy. The terrorism groups that we know today were not present. The civilians in both the north and south of Yemen, who have two very distinct cultural identities, weren't known to be fighting with one another. But do we ever remark about this? When we Google Yemen, is that the first thing we ever see? No. What do we see when we Google Yemen? We see the Houthi movement taking over the Yemen government. We see how the Houthis are going to strike Israel. We see how so many people are starving. We see so many people dying on the streets. But no one ever talks about Happy Yemen. No one ever talks about the love that they once had for this country. Rather, you focus on the pain. The long history of pain, that even though there is some progress being made, you never forget the strife, you never forget the pain. Going into my second example, I will talk about the terrorist organization Hezbollah. Now, specifically, I'm referring to the population, as in the Lebanese population. Now, before Hezbollah came into power, the Lebanese people were going through a lot of pain and suffering in the area. And it's something they could never forgive their government for. How could they? People were starving. Some people didn't have homes. The government couldn't provide for its own citizens. So who stepped in? Hezbollah. And despite the fact that even time has moved on and Hezbollah is still seen as a military terrorist organization, people don't really forget what they did. Rather, they always remember them for it. Despite the fact that Hezbollah has done terrible crimes, people love them. And because of the fact, and even though this love has gone, and even though people have moved on and they know the terrible acts are being committed, they still remember all the good things they have done. They still remember the people who helped, the people who got jobs from Hezbollah. They still remember the children who were able to go to school. They still remember the parents who were able to take care of their children. They still remember, and they will never forget. Now, going into my second point, moving on from the fact that you never forget, you never truly forget. Take the U.S. for example. The example of 9/11. We always remember that day. It is a day that will live in infamy. We will never forget the horrors that happened. And although we do still have truce agreements with the countries who the terrorists have come from, we never forget what happened. We will always remember it. No matter how much love may seem to be there, we never forget those who've caused you pain. Going into my second agreement, we'll go on talking about Pearl Harbor. Yes, we do have relations with the Japanese government. Yes, we did destroy their government, but we never forget what they did. As a matter of fact, on the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, almost every middle school, if they have a band, they will play the different songs of each armed forces, and they will remember Pearl Harbor. It's a day that lived in infamy. It's a day that brought us into the World War II, but you don't forget the lives that were lost. You don't forget the pain that it's caused. So, love is short. Forgetting is long. We never forget the pain that haunts us. Rather, it becomes what dictates our actions. And no matter how far down the road it is, you never forget. You always remember. No matter how amazing the love or the relationship was, you don't forget the pain it's caused you. It sticks with you forever.